Hello and welcome to HEAR 250 Real Ear Measurement post midterm exam time, second half of the semester, where we now wax on into the topic of real ear measurement itself. So this has been a many splendored course. We have done lots of different things. We have reviewed ANSI. We even reviewed at the very beginning non-electronic acoustic modifications, then went into ANSI, then went into fitting methods and really covered yesterday's fitting methods and today's fitting methods, really underlining all the time the fact that fitting methods evolved along with real ear measurement. And so they did, okay? Now let's talk about real ear measurement itself, and then we'll sometimes mention the fitting methods, but the emphasis will be put on a different syllable, namely, instead of the emphasis being on the fitting methods, mentioning real ear just a bit, now we'll be talking about real ear, mentioning fitting methods a little bit. So here we go. Share screen. Have a look at, well, let's shrink that and go into the Microsoft Word file, early real ear probe tube measurement. And here we're going to stress two things. Okay, basically there's early real ear measurement and there's today's real ear measurement. You can't appreciate today's real ear measurement without understanding yesterday's real ear measurement, any more than one can appreciate today's fitting methods without having understood yesterday's fitting methods. So this course has really had a bit of yesterday and today, yesterday and today. History is very important. If you don't look at history, you're condemned to repeat it, okay? As we said in fitting methods, they came from Lybarger's half-gain rule, okay? They all were born from that. Well, real ear today was born from yesterday's real ear. Today's real ear looks only at output. Today's real ear doesn't deal with gain very much. Okay, yesterday's real ear focused big time on gain. It was all about gain. So let's get a PowerPoint slide here and pull ourselves up to today's real ear, early real ear measurement. So basically, we did study already a few weeks ago a comparison of early threshold fitting methods, Berger, Pogo, now R, half gain, Libby's 1/3 gain rule. Look at how the targets all differ for this particular hearing loss. And another thing to underline is one target for each hearing loss for each fitting method. In other words, when Berger looked at this hearing loss, one fitting method in green. When Pogo looked at this hearing loss, one fitting method in red. Now, one fitting method in purple, okay? Because hearing aids were linear, and linear hearing aids give the same gain for all inputs. So they focused on the gain required for average inputs, which is average conversational speech. If you had it, that's where they derived their target gains from. Obviously then, because the linear hearing aid gave the same gain at all inputs, obviously, then the gain for average conversational speech may not have been enough for enough gain for a whisper, so the person would have to turn up the hearing aid. And the gain for average conversational speech might be too much for loud inputs, so the person would have to turn his volume down. And that's how you told a linear hearing aid wearer, or you could detect a linear hearing aid wearer. He or she was constantly adjusting their volume controls. All right, next. Behind the fitting method scene, real ear measures emerged in 1988. And again, keep in mind, the fitting method targets didn't change. Just the measurement changed. Now, we show this slide, and you've seen this one before. And let's tie it into context with good old real ear, okay? Because we've looked at this when we covered ANSI testing, didn't we? When we looked at ANSI testing, we said, oh, they have a 2cc coupler. And the real ear, when it's closed by a hearing aid stuck in it, Well, the volume of air is smaller than a 2cc coupler, right? And a lot of people got this one wrong on the midterm. I don't know why, but if you're looking at the 2cc coupler is going to be the dashed curve here. This is a frequency response, a fictitious frequency response in some fictitious, or in a 2cc coupler. Just, I made it up, okay? If you had taken that very same hearing aid and you put it on a person's ear instead of on a 2cc coupler, you'd get the solid line. And what's the difference between the solid and the dotted lines? About 5 dB below 1,000 hertz and about 10 dB above 1,000 hertz. Real ear to coupler difference. And a lot of people on the midterm had said, or on some question, I think it is, the 2cc coupler underestimates what's going on in the ear canal. The 2cc, I should say, well, a lot of people said the 2cc coupler overestimates, and it doesn't, it underestimates. Look, this is the sound in a 2cc coupler. In a real ear, it's more, because a real ear that's closed with a hearing aid in it is going to have more sound. All right, enough on that, but hang on. This is for the average human being. Okay, real ear to coupler difference. And this is the average real ear to coupler difference. What about the real ear? Okay, hence real ear measurement, because now you're looking at the ear on Ted as opposed to the ear on Matthew, as opposed to the hearing aid on Grace. I mean, different people, different ear canals. Real ear measurement takes the individual person into account, not just the generic human race. And today's real ear looks big time at real ear to coupler difference. Yesterday's real ear didn't look that much at it. So we're going to encounter this animal again. But I always want to keep you refreshed about it. In context, average RECD represents the difference between a 2cc coupler and the average adult ear canal. Real ear takes it one step closer, and you're looking at the actual person, him or herself. Another thing that you should all realize, or that we should all realize, is that when you're doing manufacturer fitting software, you may have entered the client's audiogram into what's called NOAH, N-O-A-H, which is a software that all manufacturers use. And it doesn't stand for anything. It just means all the animals of the ark are on it, okay? And since I'm speaking to an audience mainly in the USA, I don't need to go any further than that, okay, out of the biblical Noah. All right, so at any rate, so all manufacturers use NOAH. And then you choose the manufacturer's software, Bernafon, Oticon, Unitron, Phonak, whichever, and you choose your hearing aid, and then you choose your fitting method, and then you take the audiogram from NOAH, put it all together, and push a button. So basically, take the audiogram, choose a fitting method, choose a hearing aid from a company, and hit set. And the manufacturer's software goes, and you hit save. Now, a lot of people let the client out the door like that. That's not good, because that's only doing half the job. And that's why we say on this slide here, manufacturer's first fits are a shot in the dark. Okay? They're just a shot in the dark. The fact is that different manufacturers' first fits, look at what I'm reading here, can vary by 30 dB on the same hearing loss. And the fitting software in no way ensures audibility. The best way to ensure audibility for your client's specific loss is to utilize digital hearing instrument fittings equipment like the AudioScan VeriFit, or like your Oracle, anything, any real ear system. This is just an ad from AudioScan, which is a real ear system, but it's true for any real ear system. With real ear, you never need to wonder. You'll know you've achieved the best fit, reducing returns, boosting customer satisfaction, and growing your business. Now, Real fitting methods predict what it is that you want. Okay, fitting methods say, this is what you should get. You've entered the hearing loss, you've chosen your fitting method, so now you're prescribing the amount of gain and output that you want from your hearing aid based on the hearing loss, right? Okay, fine. But then how do you verify or prove that you're getting what the fitting method said you should get? That's called verification. So the fitting method predicts and verification proves. And as we've studied, we learned one way that they verified, and that was through functional gain, right? Making sure your aided thresholds matched the aided targets for Burger, Pogo, now, whatever. Okay? Half gain, you'd want your aided thresholds to be exactly halfway up. Burger would probably, your aided thresholds would be a little bit more than halfway up, with it, especially at 2000 hertz, right? All those variations, okay? So that's how you verified early fitting methods, and then came early real ear. And that's how they verified early fitting methods as well. Only real ear was non-behavioral. It didn't require the response of a client. It didn't require measuring thresholds again. And a lot of people on the midterms said functional gain was the difference between aided and unaided thresholds in a sound field. And well, it is true, but let's fine-tune that. It's the difference between unaided thresholds under headphones and aided thresholds in a sound field. Okay? Anyway, it's behavioral, because you're asking the client to push a button or raise a hand every time he or she heard a tone, whether unaided or aided. Functional gain. Real ear emerged in the late 1980s, 1988 to be exact, and the fitting methods had not changed. But the method of measurement did. Much, much quicker. So let's look at how they did. I always use this slide. It's hidden behind the black here, which always bothers me. But we think we are so cool. We've got all this great hearing aid technology, but all too often we let the software do the walking and the talking. And we don't always verify with objective measures. Is the hearing aid doing what the software said it was going to do? Okay? And let's never blame the manufacturers. It's not the software's fault. Their job is to get you in the ballpark. Your job is to hit the ball, okay? Sometimes you're the Louisville Slugger, and sometimes you're the ball, and sometimes you're the windshield, and sometimes you're the bug. Anyway, the point is you gotta measure what's going on. Otherwise, you're letting the software do all the walking and the talking. And again, you got a big problem, because manufacturers' first fits are like a shot in the dark. If you want to find out what you're really getting, do real ear. Here's an example. On the left, you're going to see a manufacturer's first fit. And you'll see 3 different targets, because it's a compression-based fitting method. Could be DSL, could be NAL, NL1, NAL, NL2, whatever. Doesn't matter. You got 3 different targets. And look, the targets are the straighter lines, and then the hearing aid fitting would be the kind of the more diagonal lines, and they're following the straight lines. They're looking good. I mean, it looks like it's like the hearing aid is doing what it ought to. You've got an output target for soft inputs, for average inputs, for loud inputs, and it looks like the hearing aid outputs are nice and close. Okay, now focus on the middle one, because the middle one is talking about average inputs. Okay, so the software is painting a rosy picture. Now look at the right. On the right, you're going to see a DSL4 fitting target. Now, we all know from a couple of weeks ago, DSL4 was a bit of a power-hungry Hummer. I mean, it was asking for too much anyway. But let's look at this slide and make sure we understand it. Because frequency on the bottom, now follow my cursor, 0 dB HL, in other words, MAP, minimal audible pressure, Now you can see the guy's hearing loss, a real precipitous hearing loss, increasing in the highs. And you can see the asterisks, frequency-specific loudness tolerance levels. And then you'll see the plus signs, which are the DSL4 targets. Now, notice you can tell they're DSL4 because they're just about halfway inside the dynamic range. And we all know from 2 weeks ago that really average inputs should be amplified so the outputs sit about a third above, right? Anyway, that's how you can tell this is DSL4. But back to this slide, look at the left. You can see that for average inputs, a rosy picture is painted. And when you're looking at real ear, well, you are way off, especially in the highs. I mean, you're not 4 dB, not 14, you're about 40 dB shy here. I mean, not that the client would like you if you made, look at, see where my cursor is, this is what the hearing aid is doing. Okay, so the software said it would be doing this on the left. You're finding out on the right the bitter truth. Now, you wouldn't want the output to be at this plus sign, or your client would probably wind up and punch you in the head. Okay, but the point is, right, wrong, or indifferent, real ear shows you what you are getting. Okay, that's the issue. Sensory neural loss with its reduced dynamic range plus linear hearing aids gave us the half-gain method, right? Linear fitting methods were based on the half-gain rule, Liebarger, right? Functional gain had to arithmetically calculate its target gain for any particular fitting method. Half-gain, Berger, Pogo, Libby, now are. Okay, half gain. Notice how the A's are exactly halfway, and with the exception of this one. This is less. Upward spread of masking concerns. But basically, all the other ones are, the A's are lifted exactly halfway to 0. Okay? So that would be the targets for aided thresholds for the half gain rule. The Berger targets follow my cursor. The arrows the A's might be like this. Especially at 2,000 hertz. Yeah. They would be quite a bit, they'd be a little bit more than half gain, especially at 2,000 to 3,000 hertz. Okay? The Pogo method would be about half gain, probably a little bit less than half gain, except at 4,000 hertz they'd want half gain, so these A's would be a little bit lower. The Libby method, the A's would be all about a third above. Okay, so you know what I'm saying, right? So this is functional gain. And the idea behind all functional gain, remember, was that if you aided the thresholds by any of these amounts, as specified by these methods, and remember, I repeat, the A's here are just showing the example with the strict half gain rule, but at any rate, the purpose of amplifying your thresholds like that was so that you'd get this. So that aided speech outputs would sit nicely in the dynamic range of the listener. Now remember, Liebarger couldn't see this. There was no visualization of this. All he could have was faith. Literally, F-I-A-T-H. Hope. You know, that if he did this, you'd get this. The reason he amplified by half was so that amplified speech would sit nicely there. But he couldn't see that with his eyes. And real ear allows you to see that. Yesterday's real ear didn't, though. Today's real ear does. So in a weird way, yesterday's real ear is like a hiccup. It's a weird thing, but you got to cover it so we know what it was. Here's yesterday's real ear. So let's look at this very carefully. Read what it says here. Insertion gain. Aided versus unaided SPL at the drum. You could plug your nose and say it, aided versus unaided SPL at the TM. Okay, because it was measured non-behaviorally. All they did was stick a tube in the guy's ear, measure his unaided response, hold the tube nicely in place in the real ear, put a hearing aid in place, measure it again, and the difference between the two is real ear insertion gain. Look what it says on the right. Fitting methods did not change. And notice closely, the target values in red, the target, okay, is identical to the A's. And I just did that on purpose on these two slides to emphasize that the fitting methods didn't change. So look at your letter A's, look at where they sit on the screen. In this case, it was the half gain rule, so that's what they chose. So over here, new slide, also half gain rule. All I did was take a hearing loss and cut the target in half, and basically see how the target here at 250 is at 10? 10? Look at 500. The target gain would be 15, increasing the aided thresholds by 15 dB. Look at 500 here, 15. Okay, look at 1,000 here, it's 20. 1,000 here, 25. That A is a little bit too high. Okay, and 2,000 here, 30. 2,000 here, 30. 4,000 here, 30. 4,000 here, 30. Okay, so I did that on purpose, okay, just to highlight the fact. So now you are looking at a non-behavioral thing. Very quick. How long does it take to do R-E-U-R? Not very. Okay, probably 10 seconds. And you've got R-E-U-R done. Then you put the hearing aid on top of the tube in the guy's ear without moving the tube. Another 10 seconds. Instantly, your R-E-I-G, real ear insertion gain, is calculated, and you just eyeball it and see how close it is to the target. Is it nice and close to the target? Then D is for done. You're finished. Okay, that's how they did it. So for a typical half gain fitting method, functional gain, an example is shown on the left. Aided versus unaided behavioral thresholds. Aided hearing loss is about half the degree of the unaided hearing loss. Note, a little bit less than half gain for the lows. Same thing. Now this could be pogo, could be half gain. Who cares? That's not the point. We don't care. The point is, on the left, unaided hearing level, aided level, functional gain. On the right, insertion gain by yesterday's real ear. Aided versus unaided SPL at the TM. Okay, non-behavioral method shows identical amounts of gain. And note again, less than half gain for the lows. Note the numbers here are identical to these. And please note, this is just an example. But I'm always trying to highlight the fact that the fitting methods may not have changed. It was the method of verifying that changed. Note only one target, because all hearing aids in those days were linear. Same gain at all input levels. A single target was for average conversational speech inputs of 65 dB SPL or 50 to 60 dB HL. Now, I would put a star by this one, and I would memorize those sets of numbers. Okay, because in SPL, average speech is between 60 and 70. In HL, average speech is between 50 and 60. That's why in your 130 course and in your advanced audiometry, when you're doing MCL measurements, they should be, a normal MCL is around 50 to 60. That's a normal MCL. Normal UCL, anywhere between 90 and 110. Okay, basically. And then, of course, what's a normal UCL in dB? SPL? Well, if you were using speech as your UCL stimulus, you'd want to add about 10, maybe 15 to that UCL in dBHL in order to get your UCL in dBSPL. Just want to tell you, should always know. The whole idea in old real ear, in yesterday's real ear, was to match your target as closely as you could. You choose the hearing aid, then you set the trimmers or you set the adjustments on the hearing aid to approximate your target. Now, note here how it says how the insertion gain here did not meet target. So look at the hearing loss on the left, and you can see your target. Now, it's always easy to recognize the target because it's always the flatter lines. The rounded stuff is the hearing aid. Okay, so here's my measured insertion gain. And in this case, it's above target in the mids, below target in the highs. You'd want to especially go into that hearing aid and increase its treble gain to best match the targets. In the early days of real ear measurement, we looked a lot at outer ear canal resonance. In fact, this is really when we learned about the outer ear canal resonance. This is really when the outer ear canal resonance began to take shape and form and show itself. Really. I mean, we've always had the outer ear canal resonance since the dawn of mankind, but our looking at it really began in earnest with real ear measurement. And that's because you could stick a tube in the ear canal and measure what's going on in the ear. So if I get to, let's see if I can escape here. Let's see what slides are coming up just to make sure we've got it, yeah? I want to make sure we're rightly on the, yeah. Let's see. Let me give you an example here. Okay, here you go. No, not there yet. Almost, not quite. Here you go. See, here's a picture of a speaker and an ear. Okay, so here you go. When you're doing real ear, obviously, you're putting a tube in the ear. And you can see how this box here is hung around the guy's ear in blue. And look at the tube. It's inside the guy's ear canal. And you have a speaker about 18 inches away from the person's ear, and it's emitting sounds. And the sounds can be twofold. They might be sweep tones. If they were sweep tones, they came out of the speaker like this. Do 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 do. In other words, 1/3 octave. Sometimes it's composite noise, and that contains all the different frequencies at once. Okay, who cares? Well, we do care because the sound's coming out of the speaker, and what we're doing is we're measuring the resonance of the outer ear canal. It's a quarter wave resonator, open at one end, closed at the other, much like my coffee cup, all right? Open at one end, closed at the other. And as a quarter wave resonator, what do quarter wave resonators do? They resonate with sound waves that are 4 times their length. So if they resonate, if this ear canal is 1 inch long, it's going to resonate with sound waves that are 4 inches long, and sound waves that are 4 inches long are around 3,000 hertz. Okay? And that's what's going to resonate in your outer ear canal. Now, with real ear, what they did, of course, was they would then put the hearing aid inside the guy's ear, leaving the tube in place. And then they would have the sound coming from the speaker again, exactly the same sound, or else either one. One's a sweep tone, the other one's called a composite noise. Who cares? Okay, so the sound coming out of the speaker, same intensity, has to be kept exactly the same, only now you're detecting aided thresholds. Unaided, aided. And so the idea was aided minus unaided equals insertion gain. The difference between aided and unaided SPL at the tympanic membrane. Very important to grasp this. Now we'll go back up here to look at this. So here it is. You've got the outer ear canal resonance with its peak at around 2,700 hertz, because the open ear canal, as a quarter wave resonator, resonates with sound waves that are about 4 inches long. Or if the ear canal is 2.5 centimeters, it's going to resonate with sound waves that are 10 centimeters long. 10 centimeters is around 4 inches, okay? Same thing. So you're figuring this out. You've got this. And by the way, you know how to figure it out, don't you? Wavelength equals speed of sound over the frequency. Frequency equals wavelength over or speed of sound over the wavelength. Wavelength equals speed of sound over frequency. Frequency equals speed of sound over wavelength. The way to remember this is speed of sound is always at the top. Okay, so frequency equals speed of sound over the wavelength. If the wavelength is 10 centimeters, that's 0.1 meters. Speed of sound, 340 meters per second. 340 meters divided by 0.1 meters is 3,400 hertz. But the ear canal isn't glass. It's made of flesh and bone, and so that resonance is spread out. Okay, you know the old story here. But the way we discovered all of this was by doing real ear measurement. So here's a complicated one. See, this is Ted's simple one. This is from research. So look at this. The 5 is the resonance of only your outer ear canal. The 3 is the resonance of your concha bowl, which is between 5 and 6,000 hertz. And then you've got all these other minuscule resonances, and you add them all up, and you've got a T for total. And notice that's around 2,700 hertz, and it's around 20 dB in value, just like mine. Okay, I'm just showing you the total. This one's giving you the whole ding-dong breakdown. Okay, nonetheless, with real ear measurement, that's how they kind of discovered all of this stuff. Now, here's something else to note. As the distance from the tympanic membrane is increased, the distance from the end of the tube, okay, the effect on the high frequencies is most pronounced. There is hardly any loss in decibels for 1,000 hertz. But now watch what it says. Centimeters at the bottom from the tympanic membrane. 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters. Geez, that's about at the, this is at the tragus just about. You're about an inch out away from the drum. Well, look what happens as you move the tip of the probe tube further and further away from the drum. Look what happens to your highs. You really lose your high frequencies. So dB loss as probe tip is moved further and further from the tympanic membrane. Well, now let's go back to this picture here. What's wrong with this picture? Probe tube tip is too far from the drum. The probe tube tip should be within a half a centimeter of the eardrum. In English, a half a centimeter is a half of my fingernail. Okay? So half of my, if my fingernail is about 1 centimeter wide, a half of my fingernail, the end of the tip of the tube should be darned close to the eardrum. And then, and only then, will you not lose all kinds of high frequencies in your resonance. So if the tube is like this, as is shown in this picture here, what will happen to my resonance? Well, if I go up here, and we'll look at this resonance here, this 4,000 hertz area will be cut right off. Oh, I'll have a peak over here, but it'll drop like my cursor, way over here. So real ear unaided response, okay, outer ear canal resonance, in other words. So when you're looking at outer ear canal resonance, that is the very same thing as R-E-U-R. They are one and the same and the one. Please, they're the same, okay? So when you're looking at the outer ear canal resonance, to get a true grasp of what it really is, that probe tip should be all the way in the drum toward the eardrum, okay? Or in the canal toward the eardrum. That's the only way that you can really say that you've grasped the whole real outer ear canal resonance, or REUR. So real ear is often called probe tube measurement. Same thing. You're going to see it on your Oracle, I think. It's called PMM. And I think that means probe mic measurement. On other systems, they call it REM, real ear measurement. So you're going to see this all, sometimes PTM, probe tube measurement. Probe tube is real ear is probe tube. Allows clinicians to objectively see the effects of ear mold changes and hearing aid settings. Allows you to objectively see the effects. You don't need to rely, it says on this slide, on subjective verbal reports of how does that sound? How does that sound? And you walk into clinics and you keep hearing the clinician, oh, how does that sound? Well, why don't you measure it and find out what it does sound like? Especially if the person comes in with says, I want the hearing aids to sound like my old ones. And then you watch these clinicians who don't do real ear struggle to try and figure it out. All they're doing is making stabs in the dark because they can't see. Well, why don't you take the old hearing aid, do real ear on the old hearing aid, print up what it did, and then make the new hearing aid copy that. It's so simple. Or else do ANSI testing on the old hearing aid, and then program the new hearing aid to copy that. Either way, they're both objective. Remember, ANSI testing and real ear are both objective measurements. ANSI is just looking at the hearing aid, and real ear is looking at the hearing aid in the guy's ear. But either way, at least you're getting something on with numbers and something on a piece of paper that you can copy one way or the other. I mean, this is the issue. This is the thing that we want to separate OTC grads from the herd, is do real ear. When you're not using real ear, you are not elevating the profession to its next rung. The idea is to raise the bar of this profession and to make yourselves scientists as well as artists. Instead of sitting there painting fingernails, let's measure what's really going on. So it's important, I think, visualizing what it says at the bottom, the sources of complaints. You can also store the results for future comparison. In addition, real ear measurement lets you compare different fitting methods instantly. You can look at the targets for now. You can look at the targets for Burger. In other words, I'll show you the slide here. Go here. So if you're, this may be the half gain target, right, in red. Well, if you wanted to see the Burger target, you just pull down on a menu on your screen, Burger, and instantly this red line would bloop, change. Pogo bloop, would change. So Burger would probably go up, 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 up. At 2,000, it would probably rise. The Burger would probably be where my cursor is here. And at 3, and then down at 4, it would be like the red line again. You can instantly see and compare the fitting methods. That's the beauty of doing real ear as well. It's a real educational tool. Here we are, okay? More on this later on, but first let's look at some real ear terms and procedures. So here you can instantly, as I was saying, the targets can be instantly compared. And you won't see them like this, but you'll see them much as shown like this. One target here, a different target, whatever. So, okay, so let's carry on here. Before anyone freaks out, by the way, because some of you may have heard from clinicians, oh, but hitting targets isn't necessarily what a client wants, especially for first-time fittings. True, I agree completely. Okay, you want them to wade in the shallow end of the pool. Don't throw them in the deep end. The target is what you want to get to eventually. But for first-time hearing aid wearers, no way, Jose. You back off, Jack. So, but the right, wrong, or indifferently, REM allows you to see what the client hears. I mean, how does that sound? Goes only so far. You can print up the results and say, I deliberately fit under target on purpose. In a few weeks when he comes in again, I'm going to increase the response of the hearing aid. And I'll print up those results. Okay, so this is the thing. Common objections to using real ear measurement. The equipment's too expensive. Well, it starts at around $3,000. I don't have to. Look closely at your bylaws. It's rapidly becoming preferred practice. Audiologists don't have to. Imagine offering better services than them. I prefer to use client satisfaction scales. How this trumps, fitting, how this trumps objective measurements is beyond me. Why should I? My competition doesn't. God forbid you do better than they do. I listen to my clients. I'm so darn good I don't need REM. REM is a waste of time. Actually, it gives lots of info for some 12 minutes of time. Manufacturer's software already does the work. See the rest of this presentation. So to me, every office should be doing Real Ear on every fitting. That's just, I have no opinions, of course. First things first, do an otoscopic exam. You're going to be putting a probe tube in someone's ear canal. Okay? Anytime you're putting something in someone's ear canal, you got to look in first. So look in, take a good peek at what you see, and also remember that wax can clog up a tiny probe tube just like that. You'll want to look into the guy's ear before and after you've put the tube in to make sure things are looking right. Okay? And by the way, you can't reuse Real Ear tubes. Never put them back in cleaner and think you're going to save money by using them a second or third time. Wrong Ola. Okay? What happens is when you put them into the cleaner, the vibrator cleaner or whatever that you may have at your clinic, okay, that cleaner is actually going to be making the wax in the tube bubble up against the sides of the walls of the tube inside. Okay, and gradually that wax will migrate. With repeated cleaning, it's going to plug up the probe mic assembly in the box itself, to which the tube is attached. And when that gets plugged up, now Houston, you've got a problem. Now you're going to be paying hundreds of dollars to get it fixed. Best not to be cheap, best to avoid. Just throw away the tube, put in a new one. Yes, it costs money, but it's the best. It's like using insert headphone sponges. You don't wash those either. You never wash those. You can't wash sponge. Anything, according to any disinfectant thing. You go to any workshop, you never wash insert headphone tips either. You can't. Okay, they're made out of sponge, and you can't clean out all the cavities. Bad news. Anyway, otoscopic exam. Then you calibrate your Real Ear system, just like good old regular ANSI testing. Calibration removes the effect of the probe tube itself, because you're sticking it onto the probe mic assembly box. And I'll show you what that looks like. Let's go and take a look-see at what I'm talking about here, so it's not just words. Okay? Here's your probe tube assembly box, the black thing. Okay? Here's another picture of a probe mic assembly box. Here's another picture. Now here's a picture again. Here's a picture of the probe tube in someone's ear canal. A nice clean ear canal, that one is. And you can see how the tip is really nice and close up to the guy's eardrum. Now, what's happening if I want to just show you a picture of what it can look like on someone's ear? There. So this is what I wanted to get to. Have a look at what it should look like, okay? So you've got this loop hanging around the guy's ear, and here's your probe mic assembly box, this black thing. And here's your probe tube itself. Now, calibration is done to remove the effects of this probe tube itself, because it's going to affect sound coming out of the mic here, okay? Or it's going to affect, not sound isn't coming out, it's going to affect the sound being picked up by the mic here. This mic in red, underneath this red thing, there's a little post. That's a microphone. And your probe tube is stuck on the end of that mic in order to pick up the sound at the eardrum, the aided sound at the eardrum, or the unaided sound at the drum. And that unaided sound has to come through this tube and come into that mic. Well, if it's coming through that tube is going to affect the sound coming into the mic. And you need to do calibration to get rid of the effects of that tube. You want the mic to be picking up the sound, you need a tube in order to do that, but you do calibration in order to remove the effects of the tube on that sound. Get it? Good. All right, now we'll go back. Okay. All right, here's where we were. You calibrate your system, removes the effects of the probe tube itself, and you sit your client about a half a yard away from the speaker. 2 feet, something like that. Whoa, here's an old real ear system, what I always called a, it's one of the first ones ever out there. No, it's not made by Bernafon. Bernafon just happened to give it to us. By us, I mean at Conestoga College in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. That's the first place that, or that's the program I started way back when, before I ever started teaching at OTC. Anyway, they have a lab, and their program is still going, and this is their old audio scan system. I'll pull it up a little closer so you can see it better. It's ancient. Nobody sells these anymore. Okay, this is a first generation real ear system. You can see the box where they put hearing aids in to do ANSI testing. Look at this dot matrix printer. Here's your 2cc couplers with your sticky stuff when you're doing your ITEs. And real ears probe mics were also attached into the inside of this box and would hang around the guy's ears. Here's a newer real ear system made by AudioScan. Here you can see the speakers. Person sits in front, and then you're measuring with the real ear, and you're looking on the screen to see what you see. So here's your real ear basics. These are the probe. This is the setup. And I'll finish this one by talking about this stuff right here. And then next week we'll go back into the same topic, the same unit, and finish it next week. But real ear basics, okay? The speakers, and here's your probe mic assemblies. One for the right ear in red, one for the left ear in blue. They're plugging into the real ear system. Every real ear system looks different. Don't fret about that, but they all have similarities. Here's another real ear system. It's an AudioScan as well. In 1988, look at what it says. We introduced the RM500, the world's first portable real ear hearing aid analyzer. It was durable and above all functional. Today we are proud to introduce the new RM500 SL. More portable, more durable, more functional, more capable. Then later on they came out with the VeriFit. Okay, but I know at OTC you also have the Oracle system, which is another great system. They're all real ear system. Calibration. Let's get to calibration. To calibrate a real ear system, you lay the probe tube, you stick it on the probe mic, which is under that red rubber thing there. So you stick the tube on the probe mic, and you fold the tube over and you lay its tip over top of the reference mic. So you can see that the probe assembly box has 2 microphones. A probe microphone, a reference microphone. Again, showing you in calibration, you lay the tube over and you'll actually put the tube between 2 little things that stick up, and they'll lay the tube between them so that the tip of the tube is laying on top of the reference mic, these little posts, okay? When here you can see those 2 posts here too. Okay. The job of the reference mic, so you're looking at the bottom mic here, is to make sure that the sound level at the ear is constant. To make sure the sound level at the ear, the sound level coming out of these speakers, to make sure that sound is what you said you wanted it to be. Did you want that sound to be average conversational speech? If so, at what dB level? 65 dB SPL? Okay, choose it. Now, if the guy's sitting 2 feet in front of the speaker, the reference mic hanging around his ear, the reference mic is making sure that the speaker sound is 65 dB SPL. If the guy moves further away, the speaker sound will get louder to maintain 65. If the guy moves closer to the speakers, the sound will get softer to maintain 65. Okay, you get it? The reference mic, the job of the reference mic is to make sure that the sound level at the ear is constant. Calibration, okay? The job of the probe mic is to measure the sound at the eardrum. Job of the probe mic is to measure sound at the eardrum. Job of the reference mic is to make sure that the sound level at the ear is constant. Make sure you understand that, okay? It makes sure, the reference mic makes sure that the speakers are behaving themselves. In other words, the probe mic, which is put inside the guy's ear, that's measuring the SPL at the eardrum. So to calibrate, now you'll notice on every REM system, there's a measurement on the box. And look at this black box. It's 29 millimeters long. 29 millimeters long. No longer, no shorter. Because you are laying this tube on the box and you're making sure the tip of the tube is right where my cursor is, and you're going to put this little ring right here. So you're laying the tube across, so the tip is right here, and you're putting this little red ring so it's right there. So the little red ring is 29 millimeters away from the tip of the tube, as you can see here, away from the tip of the tube. They do that, and you do that after you calibrate. You do that to make sure, and this is just a picture of calibration being complete on one real ear system, but don't worry about it. This is a stupid picture, so is that one. The probe tube placement has to be close to the ear. What did I say? 1/2 centimeter, 5 millimeters, less than 1/4 of an inch, okay? Ensures that the high frequencies of the external auditory meatus resonance are captured, okay? So looky here. 3 centimeters, in other words, 29 millimeters or 30 millimeters. You're doing this so that when you put the ring at the tragus, you then know, KNOW, you then know that in the average adult, the tip of the tube will be about 5 millimeters from the eardrum. That's why you're doing this. Okay, that's the only reason you're doing it. You're placing that ring so that when you have it at the tragus, you know where the end of the tube will be. It helps you insert the tube properly. That's what it's for. And the length of the box will have a measurement right on it telling you that. Okay. Enough on that for today. I think next week we will carry on and complete this session on early real ear measurement. We'll talk much more about it, and we'll go through all the pieces and the parts, and then we'll be done. Sounds like a plan? Sounds good to me. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'll stop recording here, and we'll see you next week. All right. Ciao.